we've always been told, so many vijana muongeze pia bidii.
Mwisho wa kusoma utapata kazi nzuri sana. Back in the day, my mom used to have a business a side business ya kushona nguo. So you would get, like a fundi. You know, Luas used to be the best fundis. Mm-hmm. So we had this fundi who would come, like madheta patama orders nini. Mm-hmm. Now, very interesting, this guy lives in Kibra.
Yes.
They actually they got to apply for a green card, and I can't remember who told them to apply for a green card. They won the green card.
Wow.
They won the green card, but here's the problem.
Is it a sponsor?
They could not afford. They could not afford to come. Because they did a harambe, because I remember I actually went with my mom to that harambe. And they'd gotten, like soda, nini, chakula. And we turned out to be the only ones who were in that harambe. And it was so painful. We were the only ones. Yeah, we were the only ones. It was so painful. I vividly remember that.
Ali ungeuza ile gari yako.
Man,
ungeuza ile gari yako pewe jamaa tikiti.
I know at that time nilikuwa sina authorization ya kuuza gari. Nilikuwa hata bado sija gain ownership ya hiyo gari.
Bro, just mlikuwa naogopa nyahunyo.
But those are the realities of
I'm
what we dealt with.
This was a very great opportunity. This guy, I'm telling you, this guy kwa kushona nguo, his name was Andrew. Like, he was so good.
Where is he now? Do you know?
Like, I'm gonna ask my mom, because my mom tended to keep contact with people that she employed. My mom would come, with catalogs, like akitravel US.
Correct.
Atakuja na catalogs kama za JCPenney.
Yes.
Because remember, those catalogs used to be very big back in the day. Sears, utamonyesha nguo,
anafanya carbon copy.
Man, the guy will reproduce it from a picture. That's how good the guy was. Na kisha kupima size perfect 100%. Like, if I could meet this guy again, I don't know what he's doing, but he was so skilled. Na ilikuwa ile kukata nguo unachora na chalk nini na unashona na ile that black charahani. Singer. Yes. He was very, very good at doing that. But those are the realities. And that's why I think, like, people, especially if you have a house help, if you have a security guard, I think it's important to just want to know a little bit more about them.
Invest in them. They will surprise you. Because, when things get thick, especially William Sewa security.
Yes.
That's the guy who either he looks out for you or he exits.
Yeah. I know.
And either looks out for you or looks out for you.
Yes.
Or looks out for what you have.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
That one. And it's very amazing when I go home and I see, and we are always told that because we are sisi ni watu wa diaspora, we spoil chaps, like, say, the way you tip, the way you even relate, at least for me, the way I relate with the house help, right? Or even the folks who work in the building,
a human being,
right? Correct. The first person whose hand I always grease is security. Before anybody, it's always security. So whenever I come, it doesn't matter. I know the night shift, I know the day shift. Now wananijua.
Yeah.
In fact, it gets to the point, because I always stay with my sis, it gets to a point where those chaps are always, they ask her, ikifika kituka Oktoba hivi, wanamuliza, sasa ule ndugu yako anarudi lini? Yuko wapi?
Yeah.
Because I make sure I sort them out. But not only them, even her house help. I will make sure I look after her house help. For the duration when I'm there, that house help is the happiest person. If I go out somewhere, I get cake, yendi anachukua keki. Si hawa watu wa nyumba, chukua keki uende nayo kwa watoto wako.
And the other thing that I learned is that, because you've always wondered, these house helps and security guards, they also have kids. They have families.
They do. We almost have day scholar.
They have families.
Day scholar na kona watoto kaa ile.
So interesting, unakuta house help anakufanyia kazi, but ye pia kona house help huko kwake, who's taking care of the kids, while mzee ameenda kutafuta kazi ya mjengo, na yeye ameenda kufanya kazi ya I mean, like,
ku Adobe ama ku whatever, you know, and it's not like they're paid a lot, because
They're not paid a lot of
hata hiyo
money.
pesa ya Adobe in a day waka kitu ka so saba sijui
Yeah.
elfu moja in fact you're being nice. No, I'm just saying elfu
So
moja
tano
ya-
kadhaa, so
no, I
tano.
said it depends
Yeah.
again on the
Yes,
neighborhood.
yeah,
right?
neighborhood,
It
right,
depends
right,
on
right,
which neighborhood where
yeah,
the-
Afro-Jamaican, I hope you're listening to this. You
No,
know.
Afro-Jamaican, actually, here he had made a comment. Here in I think he was talking about survival. Here in Canada, we are told to be prepared to survive 72 hours before help can arrive, and that is in preparation, disaster management. When you're
Yeah.
talking about disaster management,
Yeah.
Udi says, pertaining to your comment about diaspora
Yeah.
and helping, Udi says, Ali Badawi, that criticism was raised against Larry Madao
On highlighting the
on
flood.
highlighting the floods.
Yeah.
But they still pay VAT.
I think Washek is referring to the fact that, you know, we like saying that these poor people don't pay taxes.
they pay taxes.
But yes, but VAT,
Yes, that one is standard.
yes, that's a standard tax.
That
they
is
always
standard.
pay. Yeah.
Udi says Kijiji was there from the 80s. I grew up in Southlands.
But
on-
Woody knows what that
Yeah,
Southlands.
Woody knows, yeah.
That Southlands. It was. I remember when that thing was a field.
It
to
was
keep-
open, yeah.
Number 14, number 15. You come, you nini. That whole
Further,
field.
even before Chumi was built.
You know, you know,
Yeah.
funny, Kina Chris Rain, literally, their back wall almost goes into that Kijiji. What separates them is they have a smoker play area. But hapo,
Yeah.
because our wako Onyonka. So
Okay.
Onyonka, Southlands, and I think it's called, is it civil servants? I think.
Civil servants,
think it's-
yeah, karibu na
it's-
Otiende. Now when you're going towards
yes,
Otiende. Yeah.
So, okay, there's Otiende, there's civil servants, then there was Rubia.
Mhm.
As well, and it was Rubia then that they changed the name to civil. But Ziko Hapo too. In fact, that field is literally between Southlands and Onyonka.
Mhm.
You literally look at that field. Then ukishuka kidogo, even from Ngei, you could at one point you could kata from there and walk all the way to Ngei. And our guy who's from that area is top down. But your area at a top down, if he calls in and you ask him about how that Kijiji came about, he can't even tell you how it came about.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it was
came.
there
And it mushroomed
and
very
it's
fast.
permanent.
Yeah.
Onyango Ohingo says Kisumu is no different from Nairobi. Milimani has Nyalenda next
Yes.
door. Tomboya
Yes.
has Obunga next door.
Wow.
Marina has Manyata next door. Informal settlements will always spring up close to where cheap labor is needed. Washeke says,
Wow. Okay.
Cecile, here excuse ya to neglect slums because they do not pay taxes is the same used with illegal immigrants.
Yeah,
They
why?
need... Hold on,
Why
let me
can't she see
finish.
me on the side before she says those things?
They may not pay pay, but
Correct.
they do pay VAT, fuel levy, and other taxes in the
Correct.
revenue. 100% agree with that.
Correct.
Doreen Florence says, everyone for himself, God for us all. Bashake says, those tailors are on better than couture seamstress
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
that work for French, Italian, etc. fashion houses. We treat our domestic staff the way colonialists treated us. Yep, that master servant mentality. And
I don't know where we got that stuff.
Udi says that I think he talked about it was about to
No,
be
he
burned
said-
down. It was untouchable.
Yeah.
No, that thing burns
No,
all
it
the
was
time.
Kijiji they tried to burn it down, but it was
Yeah, and-
untouchable.
But they still do. It burns every so often.
And then
They
Udi
rebuild and they
saying,
continue.
I used to date chicks in Onyonka. It used to be an empty field.
Now
Okay?
let me tell you, in Umo Eastlands, between Donholm and Umo, right on Outer Ring Road, if you come down Kerea, you chop a left, you get onto Outer Ring Road, you're heading on the left. Doni used to be on the right, and then the next structure that you would see was P. Katikati kulikuwa na kitawa. I think it was a water tower.
Yeah.
That was
an
that,
open.
It
Yeah.
was open.
Yeah.
And
it
then
was
on
open
the
field.
right, from Doni
Yeah.
all the way to Outa,
Yeah.
it was open. There was nothing. Nada. 10 years later, my friend,
Remember,
it was Madhogodhanio. Even from Umo, where we used to live, Hapo KCC, Hapo A.
Yeah.
I could walk to Outer Ring to catch a 23 to go to West T.
Do you know if I go to Umoja like we have a home in Umoja.
Utapotea, boss.
I can't
You
even
can't.
find Iko J.
Utapotea.
Bro,
I
J.
can't find it.
Utapotea.
Now,
Mi nilipotea A na tulikuwa A.
we used to walk pale karibu na railway line. When you're in Umoja, you could see
Railway line side ya
Umoja.
Outer Ring Road ama side ingine ya Kangundo Road.
No. Side ya
Kama
I think that's Outer Ring Road.
Yo J mkiwa J
Yeah.
was opposite.
So because you could
Buru,
see
you could see Buru on the other side.
Buru.
Yes.
Yeah. You could see the WAB, it used to be called the WAB Hotel on the other side, opposite BD Primary School.
Hapo uko ni phase 5.
No, hapana, hapo ni phase 2. WAB Hotel, BD Primary is phase 2. BD is Buru phase 2. So you could actually stand there and you could see, but then now that whole space, mpaka karibu na railway line, it was taken over.
Structures.
It had structures, and now, like it's all blocked. I don't know whether those guys were ever removed, but there was a time when everything was taken there. Now, the problem is that there's a school right there. Now, these structures that have been built here, there are businesses going on in there. There's a school next door. There are no bathroom facilities. So guess what? Watu walikuwa wanaenda kwa fence ya skuli to do whatever they needed to do. So now,
Numero 1, numero 2.
Numero 1, numero 2. Diseases were spreading in the school. And then remember, this is a school, you have girls there vulnerable. So it just created a lot of problematic social issues.
Nakumbuka kuna uwanja ilikuwa Umo. Pale karibu, it's not far from J.
Yeah.
But it was karibu na Caltex. The only high rise that was in Umo at that point in time was A125. Peke yake.
Caltex unaongejwa phase 5.
No. Pale Outer na Kangundo Road. Pale.
Yeah.
Caltex. That was only the gas station ilikuwa tu. And we could actually walk up from where we were. We could walk, get gas, mafuta, kerosene, whatever, narudi. Ama... and that was it. Kulikuwa na uwanja tulikuwa tunacheza ball. Apo A karibu na F. For those people who live in East Umo, watajua, if they are familiar, not J, because I had a very good friend of mine. They used to live in J, and it was Eric Ridho. J183. The house used to face the Baro.
Yeah.
Barabara, like your Outer Ring Road. But anyway, we would go there, uwanjo tunacheza ball nini. Then one time I think tumetoka shule, tunaanza kuwa na structures hapo zimejengwa, tuvibanda zinauza nini, uwanjo imeenda.
Yeah.
It was a gone career. So now from Umo there used to be a place called Tena, like it was a uwanjo.
Yeah.
Ya kwenda tulichochoro tulikuwa tunapitia tukienda Katho, tukienda Make ama tukienda Catholic Church ama unaenda Umoja tu. It was just uwanjo.
Yeah, it was an open field.
Grabbed.
Yeah. So these are social issues. If not handled, these ghettos are gonna get to your doorstep. These slums, they're gonna get to your doorstep.
Correct.
Because these are people who are trying to survive. And the people who service the city. Yeah. Mutindwa. Yeah, that's called Mutindwa.
Mutindwa bado wako. Their structures are usually demolished.
And then they come back. They usually move with election cycles.
And then this is the interesting part.
Karibu na elections wanarudishwa.
Hapo if you're going up, at one point Mtindwa if you're on Outer Ring Road, if you're going to Buru, it was just a path, like yani chochoro
it was a path
chochoro tu.
Yeah, it was a footpath.
Na hii side ya kwenda Umo, it was nothing. Gather when I went there 10 years later, 8 years later, it was a road. Inakukata unaingia ndio unaingia Make.
So the city was properly planned even when estates like Buruburu were built.
Correct.
And then Umboja, and then these other estates were built. There was proper planning. But something fell apart at some point. And this falling apart, I think it started during time ya Moi. That's when things slowly started falling apart.
Yes, it was around that time.
And then things just got totally out of control when the politicians took over from the experts. Because even up to today, you have so many experts. There was that building that was going around this week in Udhiru, a building that
the one that had been you are telling us.
Yes.
That was, it started collapsing and people
started
had to
collapsing.
Yes.
Now there was a picture that was revealed over a year ago. it already had, when it was being built, it already had those marks for demolition, that this is not safe for human humans to live in, for human occupancy. But it seems they were allowed to continue building
and
it,
they were given
and people moved
what
in.
is it called? Certificate of occupancy.
Yes.
And
And
people moved
everything.
in. So you know, like, this is just one of those things where I think we need to decide as a country, what direction do we want to go? Because someone pointed out here that slums will always pop up next to areas that need cheap labor. So I think we need to figure out.
That was Onyango Ohingo.
Yeah. I think the problem, sometimes people talk about, you know, like, what you call like cheaper housing. But the problem that we have is that we have an income problem. Because if you give these people who are paying maybe 2,000 shillings a month, you give them a house which may have an electric bill that will exceed that 2,000 shillings a month.
Yeah, their budget is 2,000.
Yeah. So you give them a house that will exceed that maybe it will cost them about 10K to live in that house.
Let's say 5.
They're not gonna,
let's say 5.
Yeah, they're not going to live in that house. What they're going to do is they're going to sublet someone, and they will go back to where they used to live.
Yeah.
But if then that would mean for cheap labor. What about when I say employment, pay? Like, we've always been told, so many vijana, muongeze pia bidii.
Mwisho wa kusoma, utapata kazi nzuri sana.
That has been fiction even for us.
Tulikuwa vijana, tulicheza na masomo. Kazi ya watoto, kweli kila siku ni kucheza.
There you go. So at what point then is because part of the reason I think there is the cash economy is because employment availability and possibilities and options are not there. When I say employment, ni ile unaenda kuajiriwa, unapata check, stuff like that's what I mean. But hii kazi ya because even like here, whether you're a day laborer, sana even if you're doing blue collar whatever, there's a system that is there's a system that has been set up to, for lack of a better word, to monitor, to see. Because if you're a construction guy, right, or if let's say you kazi yako tu ni if you're a KYM, it's putting up rail or whatever, you open a bank account and you're just depositing check after check, 1,000, whatever. At some point, people be like, how much? What do you do in order for you to have 20,000 in your account? You're inviting an audit. Right? So, and correct me, because I'm not sure, I'm not an accountant, but I'm thinking it's going to raise us a speed. You've got 20,000, but how do you get 20,000? Omosh is the one who's paying you, giving you cash. Or then somebody else.
But I think, first
and
of
I'm
all,
saying here, but I think in Kenya, like
the problem that we have in Kenya is that unemployment is very high.
Very high.
So when unemployment is very high,
but when we say unemployment is very high, the tax base is what, 3 million. But I don't think there's a shortage of money because the cash economy is thriving.
It's thriving. But okay, here's the thing: the unemployment rate is very high, and then there's a new metric that politicians don't like using. This metric, but it's very important. You know, unemployment rate is an easy number to quote. You can say we reduced the unemployment rate. There's something called underemployment. Underemployment is a type of employment that cannot afford you a decent standard of living wherever city you live. So for example, like in Nairobi, let's say a decent standard of living, and decent standard is nothing major, just being able to afford a basic house that has electricity, that has access to piped water, just very basic stuff. So when you count underemployment, there are so many people who are underemployed. Now, if there's no focus on creating jobs. Remember all these industries that were in industrial area. They were all run out of the country. You know, like with the 90s structural adjustment programs where IMF told, you know, like Moi's government privatize everything. So a lot of industries that we used to have that would employ so many people, not only in Nairobi, but in so many other parts of Kenya. You know, like it was textile industry. We are talking about the sugar industry. Pyrethrum, you know, like there were so many industries that were employing so many people such that you could find a job, earn a decent wage that could afford you, you know, like a fairly decent lifestyle. Now, all those jobs, zilienda, you know, so Kenya is no longer, and you know, with industries, there's a lot of other sub jobs that are created, this that support those industries, you know, like company industry. Remember Cadbury's Kenya.
Yes.
This chocolate used to be manufactured in Kenya.
Yeah.
Guess what? They went to Egypt.
Yeah.
They went to Egypt.
Was it Egypt or Saudi?
No, it was Egypt.
Okay,
yeah. They went to Egypt. So they used to employ so many people. So think about not only the people who are employed by the company. So a company maybe that's employing 500 people has like maybe another 500 that are servicing.
Yes, servicing. Yes.
Way, shape, or form.
Yeah, doing things. Yes.
Yeah. So these are things if we don't deeply think about. I know we are here in diaspora, and we feel like things are okay as long as we could send a black tax. That black tax will keep increasing.
But also, there's also that notion that atuko kwa ground. There's also the notion that with us not being on the ground, we don't understand what's going on, or we don't feel, we don't get it. But we also have family members, you know, and you know, like now for me, I was constantly and always checking in on my mom, because I'm like, hey mom, uko sawa? Where you're staying, flooded? She's sawa, I'm okay. I'm glad you checked to see. And then she's cracking a joke, but I'm like, it's serious. Like, oh, you're checking to see if I've been swept away. And I'm like, mom, tafadhali. But still, whether we like it or not, us here, we are affected directly.
It's not indirect.
It's not indirect.
Yeah.
We have families, your nieces, your nephews, grandparents, your uncles, your aunties, whatever, your parents, wako huko. So whether we like it or not, we have a say-so. And it is important, because come 2027, get your asses registered to vote, goddammit.
Yeah, and you know, there was an argument that there was an argument in some WhatsApp group, where, you know, like some people were asking, how can we help? And then there was another group of people that was saying, the government already has a budget. Why would you want to be sending money to something that the government already has a budget on? Yet, you know, we're here seeing, you know, like things happening live. You know, people sleeping on top of Mabati structures.
That is the disconnect.
Yes, that's our
disconnect. That is somebody who has a disconnect with how
big
things
time.
are.
That's that ostrich in the sand,
that
with
one.
their head in the sand, and there's a fire around them, and you know that there's a fire brigade who are trying to put it out. Lakini, they are not getting to you in time, so you need to do something.
It is true. Every government, every year, county governments are allocated chums.
There's a percentage of it.
Per the constitution,
Yes.
right? Whatever has been laid out, the government receives, the county governments receive.
Let's say they receive their 100%.
They receive their monies, the 15% or whatever.
2 to 6% of it.
2% of that.
It's set aside actually.
2% of that
disasters.
for disaster management.
Disaster management.
2% every year.
Yes.
Let us start there. On paper,
on the county budget or
county
the national
budget.
budget.
No, county.
Not Gava, county.
Yeah.
So if I give, if I'm the national government,
Yeah.
and I give Ali from Mombasa County 100 million,
Yeah.
2% of that,
2 million is set aside for
that one is supposed to be 2 billion is supposed to be set aside for disaster management.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every year.
And they've not collected on it, by the way. And this is
on paper,
per the auditor.
Yeah. But on paper,
So what do you mean they've not collected?
Meaning they have not. Okay, so collected means you have gone and you withdrawn it. See, because IFMS would show it
Yeah.
that you've actually gone in and you've pulled it. Because again, a disaster is that it has to be a disaster. It's not that you'd say it's a disaster.
It has to legally be defined as a disaster.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is one of those that falls hapo. So the counties actually do have money.
Now, in defense of county governments, because there's so
I
many-
know. But this is on paper. We're just talking on paper.
Again,
Yeah. On
we're
paper.
saying on paper,
Yeah.
based
Already,
upon whatever has come in, there was to set
That is
aside
what
X.
is that is what by law is
required.
Is required.
Yeah.
That is one thing. And I know where you're going, because it's another thing, because the county government, it's like the national government has been trying to put a chokehold to make sure that they're the ones who are.
It's not putting a chokehold. Its money has not followed functions.
It hasn't.
So you used to have 700 doctors. Now you have 4,000 doctors, but the money that's being issued is still the same amount of
For
when we had
700
doctors.
Yes.
So now that's why the doctors
The
you see
money,
they're going
yes,
on
the money
strike.
is not following function.
Money is not following functions. So
Yes.
so a government has like devolved those functions, but they still want to keep the money.
Chokehold.
So I think that's part of the problem that some county governments are experiencing. And I think
And-
one
and
of
just
the
to let-
reason why county issues are being amplified is because they're right there. They're right next door. Government, national government, is an amorphous thing that's way out there in Nairobi. So people, let's say like in Kisumu or in Wajir, they don't know, like they don't see those they can't see what's
No,
happening
they can't.
there. But they can see what's happening within their county. So that's why I think the national government has kind of, I think, like the county governments are bearing a lot of burden that should be borne by the national government.
100%.
But because, people are next, people will talk about the
And
county
also, just to
government.
provide context,
Yeah.
the budgets that county get are based on the last audited
Accounts.
accounts.
Yeah.
When was the last audited account?
Now, like
either-
typically it delays. It could be like even 3 years ago. I'm not sure.
2019 or 2020.
Yeah.
So that is what
That's a huge gap.
exactly.
That's a huge gap.
Yes.
Like it's a huge gap.
Yes.
So there's a problem which I think needs to be solved.